let's talk about spacing now in various digital publishing um, apps here. In this case, we're going to take a look again at Google Slides. But again, a lot of these principles would apply to Google Spreadsheet and also Google Word Processing or Google Docs. Again, the controls may be in a little different spot, but but they're generally in the same place. Now, if you take a look here, we have some different controls that we want to take a look at. We're not going to worry about margins right now. We'll put that in a separate video to share with you guys. Remember that margins are basically the space around a document, and we don't really work with margins much in slideshows. We actually do that in a document itself. So we'll talk more about that later. But in this case, we want to take a look at alignment controls, line spacing, and then the ability to use handles here as well. So we're going to go back to this example here. We kind of messed around with some of these things in the text formatting piece. But I'm going to go ahead and make my text box a little bit bigger here to kind of exemplify some of these things. Let's talk about spacing here first. When you look at how this text is appearing in this text box, you'll notice that it is appearing in the lower right-hand corner of the text. Now, to change that, what we simply need to do is take a look at the alignment functions here in our control panel. So if you'll notice here, if I click on this, right now, even though they don't have it highlighted, the text in the text box here is in the right alignment position and at the bottom. Now, if I wanted this to appear differently, I would simply just choose some different options. Let's say, for example, instead of being at the bottom here, I want it in the middle of the text box. I would click this and notice how it moves now to the middle here in the vertical alignment. Let's say also I want it in the center of it horizontally, meaning going across. I would use the center function, and now my text is taken on a different spot. Now, I can either do it where I have just the text box itself highlighted, or I can highlight the text as well, and the controls will still take place. So I'm going to left aligned and then go to the top. Again, I can move it around all over the place. So those are those alignment spacing controls that are very helpful when kind of managing a text box. The other controls that I wanted to mention here was line spacing controls. Now, we know if we wanted to, for example, if I wanted to separate these a little bit, these two lines, I could put in a return. I could hit return and it would move it down to the next line. Okay, that's not always the best thing to do in these situations, though, because it can kind of mess with the formatting. You can see here, for example, I hit a return here, I hit it a couple times, and when I take it out of here, notice what happens. It goes to left alignment. So that's not the best way to do things. If I wanted to change the spacing on these, and maybe I didn't want it as far as a return either, what I can do, I have to go up here under the line spacing controls, and there's lots of different things I can do. I can change it so that it is a space and a half in between, okay, which gives me a little bit more room, not a full return, but a little bit more room, okay, and I don't have to put extra returns in or anything like that. Or if I just wanted a little bit more, I hit the 1.15. You notice how the text is kind of changing. I go to double space, which is like putting in returns, but again, you don't have to mess around with that, okay. So lots of different ways. Now you can actually customize it too. Down here, or you can put in spaces after paragraphs. We'll take a look at those a little bit later. You can customize the spacing. Let's say you only wanted it to be 1.25 here. Okay, you could do it that way. Okay, or if you're typing out a paper, okay, and you wanted it to be single spaced for the whole thing, except after returns, okay, or you're doing a bullet presentation, and you want it to be different after you have put a return, that basically is a paragraph, then you can use the customized spacing piece here. Let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to single spacing, and I'll show you what I'm talking about there. I'm going to make my font a little bit bigger so I can fit this all in one text box here. I'm going to move kind of fast, so hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Okay, get rid of that. Okay, and I'm going to hit a return. That means a new paragraph. And now the text after this, I want it to be left, not centered, so I'm going to put it there. We'll talk about bullets later. I guess I'm not going to worry about bullets right now. Maybe I'll just use dashes here. Okay. Now I'm going to change my formatting a little bit. I don't want to underline on. Okay, and I'm just going to type in some things. Font size. Maybe I'm just making a list of those different controls. Okay, font size, styling. Oops, I didn't put a dash in there. Sorry. And color, right? And those are pretty simplistic lists, but let's just use it for this example. All right. So here's my list. Okay, but let's say I wanted more space in between these, but I don't want it to be double spaced. What I can do is I can go up here and I can go to that customize spacing. Now notice I highlighted them already. Customize spacing. And what I can do is just add in some measurements here. Now these are measured in pixels, which is kind of hard to explain, or points. So you just kind of customize it. So I'm going to go after each return, I'm going to say that I want 15 points in between. Notice how they spaced out there a little differently. And I can customize them. Maybe that's too big. Maybe I want to go to 10. Again, I'll go to line spacing, customize spacing. And if I go to 10 now, that'll bring them a little bit closer together. But it's putting that space in between so it makes my list look a little bit better. Okay? So there's that control there as well. So that's some line spacing controls that you can use there. And you sometimes you just got to kind of play around with things till you get it to where you want it to be. Okay? Now let's go ahead and put this off to the side. And finally, what I wanted to show you here real quick, and I've been kind of showing you this all the way, is the use of handles to make things bigger and smaller. And this kind of goes along more with shapes, but it also can go with text boxes as well. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a shape here. Okay? And again, I can manage spacing and size by using the handles, these little boxes here. We call these handles. Okay? And I can use these either to change the size of things, or I can even use this part to rotate it, which is kind of cool, okay, with shapes and that sort of thing. But again, that kind of goes into our spacing issue here because of the fact that I can control how much space it's taking up on my slide here, or if it was a shape on a word processing document, you can do it that way too. So just some things to think about here. And again, don't forget also you can actually enter in text here as well. Double click, and most of the shapes will allow you to enter text. And when you get them in here, again, the spacing stuff applies. So you could, again, go in here and put it in the middle. You can control where the text goes. You can also control its font. You know, all those things that you can do in a regular text box, you can also do in a shape. Okay? So those are just some things to think about when it comes to using spacing when dealing with your text on a slide. And again, a lot of these things do apply in word processing as well, or in spreadsheets. Some of the controls are a little different, and we'll add some videos for those if we need to. But I just want people to be aware of those spacing controls.